Hey there, guys. It's Mike Burris with Spirit Music Meetups.org, a fantastic website. Sorry I've been out of circulation for a while. I've had a couple scary moments with my health there, but the Lord's been gracious. He's showing me a way through it. He's going to make me better. He's going to rebuild me. He told me, You shall be rebuilt. So I believe that. But I wanted to get back with you guys because I had a really great lesson with one of my star students. I want to show you the whiteboard that we set up uh, of this, and we'll go over it today, okay? Because it's really fantastic revelation that I had. And the Lord gives me a lot of revelation. So here's the whiteboard. Let's see if we can get all that in. Okay. So you can maybe just freeze this and go back and look at that whiteboard. I'm going to back up a little bit so you can see that whiteboard. So I'm going to zero in so you can see very important things like this. Focus is fire, focus is power. I'm going to show you these key words here. What does it say here? Okay, do you see those boxes? All right. Yeah, there's the three boxes. Okay, check those out. And then this pyramid, we'll explain that. These are things that God has shown me over time. And we'll go over all these in detail. Okay, so let's go back to here. Sorry for all the movement. It's not very professional, isn't it? But you know, I want people to know that it's not about flash. It's not about your might and power. It's not about that. It's about the spirit. So you don't have to have everything perfect. Everybody's into this performance, all about looks and being really flashy. It's all show, but there's no content. There's no Spirit of God in a lot of things that are going on in the world for certain. Okay, so that's better, huh? Now, I've also been busy with spiritmusicmeetups.org. I'm putting a lot of cool prophetic revelation stuff on there, and you can see that on the prophetic Rhema page. So just go to the home page and you'll see that. And I'm also going to be expanding the drums section, the drums tab, because I'm moving over I'm moving over teachmetodrum.com, which is years and years and years of technical drumming, the techniques of drumming, and moving that over into that website. So watch for that. It takes time to do all this. It's a ministry. I'm doing this by faith. I've been taking donations from people. It really helps with all the time and materials that it takes to do this type stuff. Sometimes I have to hire consultants to help me figure things out. It's beyond me. There's a lot of technical stuff when it comes to WordPress and all that. So let's go over this. So what came to me is what the term principle. It was just really big in my head to come to me as I was asking the Lord for revelation about drumming. You know, you hear people say, master the fundamentals. So I asked the question, what is a principle? The principle, not principal, you know, like the principal of your school, but the principles of drumming. There's principles of everything. Everything is built on these key principles. And I think of them as the building blocks of this wall. These blocks put together build the wall on top of a foundation. So the foundation is very, very important, especially for tall buildings. And then you have these walls that are built from blocks. So you can think of them as building blocks. You can also think of them as keys, the keys to unlocking the door of something. I'm going to keep looking at this board. So the principles are like mastering the fundamentals, the keys, the foundations, the building blocks. You can also think of the word rudiment. We have rudiments of drumming. They are like building blocks for building technique. So I asked my student, what do you think they are? Now, he's a really professional bicycle rider, so we tied it into that. What are the principles of successful bicycle riding. So we also were going through this, and one of the things I first came to is foot and stick control. Yeah, foot control for drum set and stick control. So there's a lot of books on stick control. A really good one by Ted Reed. It's been around for a long time. But a lot of techniques to build control. That means controlling this stick, exactly where it hits, how high it goes, halfway up, full height, or tap strokes. There's actually 9 strokes that we calculated at one time. And techniques for getting doubles, triples, all kinds of techniques, using your fingers, your wrists, and it's all about another key, physics. You're either working with physics or you're working against physics. A lot of people have injuries in their elbows and their wrists and their shoulders and up in their neck. And I've had to work with a lot of them and videotape them, and you can see that they're trying to break the rules of physics instead of working with them. Don't go against what God has created. Don't jump off a perfectly tall building. Stay up there. Don't jump off because you're going to hurt yourself. And so you want to know the physics of drumming. What about, so technique is really involved in building this control. The other thing that came up is what is rhythm? Rhythm is any repeated, it has to be repeated for it to become rhythm, motion or sound. Pattern, it's a pattern. So that means it has to be repeated. So it's very important to know the different rhythms. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 EN, 2 EN, 3 EN, 4 EN. And the different rhythms that I call them rhythmic words because they're like words that make up sentences of music. And it's also important to know about timing. Using a metronome so that you have good timing. Some drummers are very technical and they can do all kinds of crazy stuff, but their timing is terrible. They don't know how to play with a band. Bands can't even play with them because they don't know where 1 is. They get to 1 too soon after they do a fill. And they hit 1 on the crash, but they get there before the band. Or they get there after the band because they don't know that there's 4 counts in a measure or whatever. So learning to count, why counting? I believe that they have hooked up electrodes to the brain and everything. If you can say it, you can play it. This is like learning orange. They taught you this when you were in school. Learning to say something. Also, they hook your brain up and they can see that much more of your brain, a significant portion of your brain is being used when you say something out of your mouth. When you just think it, it's all pretty scattered. But when you say it out of your mouth, it's very localized. Frontal lobe, it's really lit up. And that's because the mouth focuses your thoughts. You can have 10,000 thoughts going on, 1,000. You're not even aware of it. But when you have to speak out your mouth, there's so many parts of your mouth being used, breath and everything, that it requires a lot for your brain to speak. So it focuses your thoughts. So really, do yourself a favor. Say what you want to have happen. It's a principle in life. Say what you want to have happen. Keep saying it, and learn how to count, and then your body will follow your mind, right? Physical coordination comes after mental coordination, but really the mouth focuses the mind. So I believe if you count 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a, say what you want louder, and it'll play louder. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and 2 E and, okay? So using your mouth to drive your mind, to drive your body. So important. What else? Oh, reading music. Hey, reading music is very important in a lot of bands. You just can't even get in if you can't read music, because the rest of the band is reading music. Now, some bands don't require reading music, but it can come in very handy. I have been in many gigs where I looked over the shoulder of the accordionist or the piano player, sometimes the bass player. I could see it from afar. I could see their note patterns, and I knew how to support, embellish, and dialogue those note patterns, and I'll talk about that. So it was very handy. Songs that I did not have any music, they just threw it on me, say, hey, just follow. And I followed seamlessly because I could see their note patterns. I could find something that would fit that. I could see where their breaks were, where their long notes were, where their rests were, and I could fill in there. And that's called dialogue. So, very important to read music. Been in a lot of orchestras. You won't get in an orchestra unless you can read really well. You can't get into college nowadays, the music program, unless you can go through a lot of reading auditions. So that's very important. But by learning how to read, you can learn things so much faster. I have 100 books, and I can read those books, and I get fantastic ideas from them. And I go beyond those ideas, but it's a good jumping off place. It's like a trampoline. So definitely use the ability to read. Can you imagine not being able to read English and just having to learn from people talking to you? It'd take you forever to learn anything. So what's another thing? Subdivisions of time. Well, that has to do with, dividing the quarter note into eighth notes, into 16th notes, and learning how all that works to create rhythm. That's important. Subdivisions of time. And how that relates to the metronome. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2 and 3 and 4 and. So making everything very even. There's also this really big principle I call focus, bringing it down. Focus is fire. Focus is power. Why do I say focus is fire? Well, you take a magnifying glass and on a cold day, and the rays of the sun are up there, but you don't really feel them. Then you focus them down through the magnifying glass to a pinpoint, and it'll start a fire on a leaf or grass, on your skin. It'll burn a hole right through your hand. So focus is fire, and fire is very powerful. Think about all the energy that is derived from fire, fossil fuels, man. So focus is fire, and therefore it is power. And I believe it's power because you're focusing your thoughts, you're focusing your life, you're focusing your drum practice towards a pinpoint. And then it becomes very powerful. It's like a needle can do a lot more damage than a book. It doesn't take as much force to really do a lot of damage using a needle because it's all pinpointed. So focus is fire. Now this is very important. I use it a lot with my ADHD, Asperger's, all kind of autism spectrum students. You have to focus in. This multitasking thing is never worked for people. So there's also a key called speed and velocity. So a lot of things we do in drumming is just to build speed, right? So we're doing a lot of special exercises just for speed and or velocity. Then there's power exercises, which is really accenting exercises and using your fingers, using your wrists, sometimes using your arm. So there's important techniques for power and speed. There's also techniques for delicacy, or what I call touch or nuance. And that's learning to play, very soft dynamics. So that's a principle too, is dynamics. You got loud, very loud dynamics, fortissimo, and learning how to play up, pianissimo, piano. See, I'm moving in. Mezzo piano. Mezzo forte is about halfway up and halfway in. It's kind of mediocre. And forte is a little higher. It's almost in the middle. And then fortissimo is on the top. Learning how to do that with all kinds of strokes, doubles, singles, triples, buzz rolls, it's tricky to develop that touch. That's dynamic control. I call it dynamic control. Then there's coordination and independence. It takes coordination to do all this, right? So there's There's exercises to build coordination on your hands, also on your feet, and between your hands and feet when you're on the drum set, right? So I call crossbody from the top to the bottom and to the other side. It's actually going across the brain because the right hand is controlled by the left brain. The right side of the body is controlled by the left side of the brain. The right side of the brain, the creative side of your brain, right, the artistic side of the brain is controlled by, is controlling the left side of your body. So there's this crossbody thing that's going on. And this is why counting is left brain, singing is right brain. So instead of just going one eanda, two eanda, you can go ba-da-da, 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 ba-da-da. So this is important to do, singing and counting, both sides of the brain, but also crossbody. So learning how to do drum set stuff that requires across the body, as well as top down. So you can do exercises like that. There's endurance or lasting power. So it's not just volume power and learning how to do different strokes for that, and softness. Right? So you hear the difference. Big differences are important. But also being able to last. So you want to do single strokes for a while. See if you can go like 30 seconds playing evenly. I got a little sore on my hand, so I'm going to switch my grip a little bit. I played a gig with brushes, and I played really aggressively using a new grip that I've created. The Lord showed me. So being able to do that for like a minute, evenly, different lengths of time. So endurance is very important. It's pretty tough when you get up here to play very long. Now, so we talked about physics. There's a lot of physics in drummings, and there's physics in motions on the drum set. So I have a whole thing called motion studies where we work in circles instead of straight lines, because circles have momentum, like a bicycle wheel, and it really builds up momentum because there's no stopping and starting. Remember, a body in motion tends to remain in motion except acted on by an outside force. You actually have to stop it. But a body at rest, if you move in straight lines, up and down, forward, backwards, these straight lines, every time you stop, inertia says it wants to stop and stay stopped. It takes an active force to move it again. That's a waste of energy. So what we want to do is find circular motions. So even as I'm playing single strokes, I can think circles. Freddie Gruber talked about this. I remember that Neil Peart, who just died not too long ago, he talked about this, changing his motions. Really important on drum set, that we don't cross over unless we're intentionally doing fancy showmanship crossover. Trying to keep our hands in circles relative to each other, using our domains, hitting our left stick mostly from in front of us to the left, our right stick from the right in front of us to the right. So if you go over here, both hands now have new domains, but normally the domains are like this. Okay? So I'm covering a lot of things that in the future we'll talk about in specific separate videos. So now we have groove is master. So if a lot of new beginner drummers, even intermediate drummers, they are doing too many fills, and they don't understand the pyramid that I took a picture of. The top of the pyramid is only like 10 to 15% of the time you should be doing dialogue, which is conversation with other musicians. You filling in their holes with drum fills. you're filling in the hole in their conversation where they stop playing or they just play a long note. There's no rhythm going on in that space. That's where you play wah ba 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 da ba da ba da ba ba doosh, and you come back in playing time. So the bottom of the pyramid really is like 60 to 70%. That's the bottom of the pyramid. Okay, so that's where you should do timekeeping, and I call that support. You're supporting the time feel, which, in other words, it's a shuffle for blues or triplets, or 16 notes for funk or a rock ballad or whatever it is. You're providing so you're providing the time feel, and you're playing a groove. And a groove is like a record groove. It just stays in the same rhythm. It doesn't change the rhythm very much at all. That way the rest of the musicians feel really comfortable, and you do this groove for a whole phrase or section, 4 bars, 8 bars, 16 bars, a section of the music, like the verse or the chorus, the introduction, definitely the verse and the chorus. You might have different grooves for each of those, most likely. And then in the middle is about 15 to 30%. You're embellishing that groove. In other words, you're adding a little salt and pepper. You're adding some maybe buzz rolls in there somewhere, or you're filling in the E with the E's and U's. 1 and 2 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and a 4 and a 1. So you're filling in some extra little stuff in there, but you're not really changing the main notes of the groove. So the band still feels it pretty good. That embellishment has to be softer. It cannot interfere with the groove. It can't compete with the groove. They can't hear a lot of that, or they will lose the groove. So we talked about fills being the dialogue. So we got support, embellishment, and dialogue. That really is the way to play. And if you do that well, bands will invite you back. I've been teaching this for a long time. It works very well. It's understanding that musicians don't really like to hear a lot of drums except in certain places. And it really makes the music feel good. Get a lot of compliments about that. And I teach this, if you do the SED, if you set it right, get it said, SED, support, embellishment, dialogue. Embellishment's like enhance. That's another fancy term. Nuance, abacatura, there's all kinds of names they come up with this. But just think of it as enhancing the music. Support, embellishment, dialogue. If you set it right, you'll stay out of the DES. SED keeps you out of the DES. And young students don't know what that is. DES, Department of Economic Security. It's where people get food stamps because they can't get work. Well, as a musician, you'll get work if you're good at supporting the band, their key notes, you're supporting it with something that you're doing. You're supporting the time feel. You're supporting the bass guitar, the left hand of the keyboard. You're supporting that, right? Those key notes. You're supporting the basic rhythm strumming feel of the guitar player, not the lead guitar player doing all the fancy runs. You just stay out of his way. You let him do his thing, and when you have a chance and you have a hole, then you do your thing. But you respect each other's turf. It's called, frequency landscape. Stay out of the same frequencies. That's a whole nother subject. So I think we covered one of the, I'd say, key factors of success is observe and watch. So when I'm looking at a mirror right here, and I have a bungee cord at one level for my highs and a bungee cord at another level for my lows. So I'm playing right to that bungee cord to make sure both of my hands are at the same height. This is the power of observation. This is what a good scientist does, right? And then I have my other level. Now, if I don't have bungee cords or a mirror, I'm going to sit there and pick a spot out in the air. And I'm looking at my tips coming to that level. and I'm observing. I'm not just zoning out. There's times for that. I'm also observing my technique. I'm making sure I'm right angle here. I'm watching my fingers. I'm trying to watch my fingers. I'm watching my fingers. I'm watching my wrists. I'm watching a lot of things. Watching my elbows. So I'm a little sitting jockeyed here. So things aren't going to be looking exactly symmetrical from your point of view, but it is for me. So watching and observing, very key to your success. And so we also ask these three questions that were in the big square boxes. Where is my weakest link? If two people pull on a chain or a rope, a chain, it's going to break, or two trucks, it's going to break where? At the weakest link. Wherever that weakest link is, that is where it's going to break. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to strengthen all the strong links. It makes more sense to find out where the weak links are. My left hand is my weak link. And to do a lot more exercises that exercise my weak link. And then the whole chain is going to appear to be stronger. If I do a lot of things, a lot of different things, variety is the spice of life. Don't get stuck on one thing and get so bored you fall asleep. And then you're no longer watching and observing, right? So where's my weakest link? On an assembly line or a factory making like cars, if they want to get more production out of that, get more cars made in a day, they're going to find who is the slowest worker. Is somebody like reading their text messages or talking on the phone? You know, where is the bottleneck? The bottleneck is the narrow part of the bottle. Where is everything being backed up behind? That's where we got to fix it, right? There's no sense in retraining the entire line, spending all that money going over training for all those people when it's probably one or two people. You got to just find out who they are. I also think it's important, not to just do something that is all work. No play makes Jack a very dull boy. Remember that, The Shining. That was a scary movie. So, if I do something that I know I need to do, but it's really boring, then I got to find a way. Just doing this for an hour is not going to do it, right? You got to find ways to keep yourself fresh. So you're going to find ways to get that exercise. So I made flams out of it. Or maybe I can do you got to use your imagination. A lot of the stuff's not in books. You also have to really pray. That's what anointed, prophetic, spontaneous music is about, is hearing from God. You say, well, what do you think, God? Is there's something, and you ask and you receive. Just watch for it to come into your head. So you'll come up with ideas. You won't come up, they'll just come into your head. You'll go, wow, where did that come from? Well, you asked and you shall receive. He said, seek or search for diligently and you shall find. Right? That's what it says. That's what Jesus said, like over and over and over, right? He says, knock, keep knocking. These are all habitual lifestyle in the original Greek language, all routine actions, lifestyle habit. Keep asking, keep seeking, keep knocking. And it all happened, man, because God knows how to give good gifts to his children. And then I should say, ask, where is my greatest joy? Because if you do something that is really joyful, you're going to catch yourself smiling in the mirror, right? And you do stay in the joy. God has told me that so many times, because the joy is a flavor of the singular fruit of the Holy Spirit, which is love, Galatians 5:22. It's a flavor, just like biting into a piece of fruit. you first, man, you're overwhelmed by this unconditional love, loving acceptance, no strings attached. Wow, I'm not judging you, I love you. And then after a while, you feel joy because you're so grateful. You're just so happy, so grateful that you've experienced this love. And this is in everything that God has created. Music, a sunset. If you stare into it long enough, if you look into it long enough, you will feel the love of God. And then you will feel so grateful, so joyful. You'll have tears of joy. This has happened to me. I've been in joy in this drum room so many times for long periods of time. I want to be in that joy. That's where really time stands still, by the way, and where you really see skill develop, because now you're in with God. God's skill is in you, and it's flowing through you way beyond your might and power abilities. Remember, Zechariah 4:6 says, not by might nor by power. It says, in fact, not by might or by power. That's man's external and internal resources. I mean, basically anything that man can bring to the table is worthless. But by my Spirit, says the Lord. That's the new covenant. The old covenant was all about might and power. If you do this, if you work really hard at this, then you will get this. Well, it really showed that man is flawed at that. So the new covenant, thank God, the new covenant replaced the old covenant. That's what it says. But yet people just love to quote the old covenant. 613 laws. They just pick and choose which ones they want to steal out of there. But Jesus didn't. He just answered trick questions from scribes and Pharisees who were Bible students. He just answered trick questions about the Old Testament. He never taught it. You go back and read it. He never taught it. He went way beyond the Old Testament. He said, love others as I have loved you. Oh my gosh. I mean, Jesus gave himself for the whole world, enemies included. Well, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, what if you don't love yourself? A lot of people don't love themselves at all. What about their neighbor? Well, the Hebrew and Greek Septuagint, neighbor means fellow Jew. It does not mean, fellow Roman soldier who's been crucifying all my brothers left and right. How can I love people like that? The law said to not even have a Gentile underneath your roof, not to even eat with them. So we got some serious contradictions there. So the Old Testament laws are not the New Testament laws. There's only two entole, official, universally binding laws in the New Testament. My website, spiritmusicmeetups.org, has a whole thing on New Covenant. And the only two commandments, I mean, you look for them everywhere. There's only two: having faith in the Son, whom the Father has sent, and loving one another as I have commanded you. A new commandment, brand new, completely different in kind, is what the word means. And that is to love one another just as I have loved you, and the whole world will know that you are my disciples, my followers, if you follow that one commandment. So, and certainly having faith, which trusting, relying faith, dependence in the Son whom the Father has sent. This is the work of God. When they say, what is the work of God? That we must be saved. It's that. It's very clearly that. So, and then I would say the last question is, of all those different things we talked about, what do you think would be the most effective? That's really going back to the weak link, strong link. What would be the most effective for you? Most effective. And what would be the least effective? Well, you don't want to spend all your time on least effective stuff. So I think that really also depends upon what your gig is, what your music is. Some things in jazz you'll never use in rock. And so you don't want to spend a lot of time on stuff you won't ever use. It might be really interesting to you, and so that's your joy, then spend time on your joy, but know that it's probably not going to get used until you're playing jazz, right? So, if you got a gig coming up, go through your list of music that is coming up and worry about rudiments of drumming, drumline stuff, just snare drums, all this kind of stuff. Maybe do that at another time. So there's always priorities, right? Well, this was very generalized. I didn't really show you a lot of cool technique stuff. There's many videos about that. But this is about mastering the essentials, the principles, the fundamentals, the building blocks, the rudiments, so that you are effective, so that you enjoy. I think as I'm teaching you these things, but I don't want to view myself as your teacher, because Jesus said there's only one teacher, and that was him when he was on this planet. The Father was the teacher before that. Jesus was the teacher here on earth, and the Holy Spirit of Christ is the teacher who is now within us. Christians dwelling within us, teaching us all things, he said, leading us into all truth, guiding us into all truth, all, And so like 1 John 2:20 and 27 says, so that you have no need of any other teacher. See, teachers will mislead you. So don't get misled by anything. Just view these as suggestions. Mainly, really importantly, is ask the Father, all right, through Jesus, okay, by the Holy Spirit. Sounds real technical. Just ask God. They're all God, right? So just ask God, hey, what do you think about this? I mean, how do I do this? And then you'll just keep talking, like I've been doing. I'm trying to squeeze this all in. This video went too long. But listen. So you ask, and then you listen. And sometimes I just play, and I'm listening at the same time. And I'm watching, because a lot of times the picture is of 10,000 words. I'm watching, sometimes he shows pictures inside your head. So watch for those pictures coming inside your head. Sometimes he'll show you something watching yourself. It'll just like, whoa, where'd that come from? Now I can see it. So be observant and expectant. That's what faith is. It's expecting God to speak to you. When he starts speaking to you and showing you these things, keep a journal nearby and write these things down, because you want to be obedient to them. Don't be a bratty kid always asking for stuff, and then when you get it, you don't even recognize it, you don't give thanks for it, and you don't do anything with it. So, definitely do something with it. Play around with the ideas that God has shown you. All right? So, have fun. Sorry this video went long. I'm going to try to keep these shorter in the future, God willing. I know he's willing. He's got to teach me. All right. Bye-bye. God bless.